Welcome everyone back to the Comics Cube. We are taking a break from the hiatus. I have not had a show on since February of 2023, the end of February 2023. I just can't help myself. We will be back in July, but I can't help myself. We have to talk about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And with that, I am with the biggest Miles Morales fan in my life, my nephew Tristan. I'm just going to rename you because it looks weird seeing your whole name.
It's definitely the first time I heard that spiel. I
Well,
definitely did not hear that spiel from you 5 minutes ago.
absolutely not. Well, I don't think I called you 5 minutes ago the biggest Miles Morales fan in my life. If you guys want to find Tristan on social media, there is his screen name on Facebook. Tristan Dillon writes, there is no A in Dylan.
It's not a typo.
It's not a typo.
That's actually how my name is spelled.
Let's do this again. We are in agreement that prior to this movie, yes, the best Spider-Man movie ever made is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, correct?
That's yes, that's definitely by a mile.
Good one. The only thing we have to answer, therefore, is this movie better than the first one?
Yeah, and it's hard to judge because Across the Spider-Verse definitely a sequel, not it's not created as a standalone or like something that can be wrapped up in one movie. It's not a story that's wrapped up in one movie. I'm sorry if that's a spoiler for people. I think it's understood that we are doing something involving spoilers because
it says spoilers on the title, people. You know what you're getting into.
The thing. And it falls into a lot of the same things that that plagues second movies or movies within a franchise. But I won't say it plagues it negatively. I'd say it plagues it in a what's a positive term for a plague if there's a positive way to twist the plague.
The antithesis of a plague is a vaccine.
Okay, let's go with it. It vaccinates you, but without the side. Anyway, it's great. It's one of the best. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. Definitely one of the favorite movies I have ever seen. Maybe my favorite movie. But it's hard to judge on its own. That's the thing.
Well, let's move it to something more recent comparison. More recent comparison. There was, for my money, the best MCU movie that's ever been made. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 came out,
and that's the last. That's the one that just came out.
And that's the one that just came out. Like I'm not saying it's my favorite MCU movie ever made. I think it's the best movie the MCU has ever made. Is this movie better than that movie?
In my book, the Spider-Verse movies are the best movies ever made. That's in my book. But we all have different books. But
why? What is it about the Spider-Verse movies that resonate with you so much?
I think it's a great piece of filmmaking that really captures so much and what resonates with like me personally, and delivering it in a package that's so creatively innovative, and it's like a creative firework. It's kind of like it's like getting all the best things in like getting childlike wonder and packaging it into something that can be watched in the theater, in cinema, and can be shared with other people. I can't really explain it much more than that, but I don't know, just seeing Miles on the screen with all the other Spider people, it's like, hey, that's someone I can relate to, and someone I feel like resonates with me. I think in any character in any medium, I have not resonated like with a character more than him.
Is you're talking about Miles, this Miles specifically, or
yes,
is that true as well for like the Miles in the video game?
Like this one specifically.
This one specifically, okay.
This one specifically.
So what is it about this Miles specifically, as opposed to, let's say, the one in the video game that you find so relatable?
Uh-huh. I don't know. I don't know. I think I can't really capture it when like verbalize it, but I just feel it, you know. I just like when I see like even this background I have here. This is Miles's room.
It
This
looks
is
like
one of my
Genki's
favorite
room to
rappers.
me.
This is one of my favorite rappers of all time. Uh pre 2019. Uh since after that he made some questionable music choices. Anyway, uh just the way he moves, the way he's portrayed. I think it's uh it's something that I haven't seen a lot of yet.
He's a
Like in
cool nerd.
he's a he's a he's I guess you can say that, yeah. Cool nerd.
Because now I have now that you're mentioning that, like, I have to contrast him with Peter Parker, because the whole point of Peter Parker was that he was a nerd, right?
He's nerd. Not Andrew's Parker though.
No, he was just an angry nerd. He was barely a nerd.
He was barely a nerd.
He was just really smart. But that was the whole point of Peter Parker, and that's why Peter Parker took off when he was created, and why he has stayed relevant. But it does feel to me that to your generation and the younger generation, Miles, even with Tom Holland as the quote unquote main Spider-Man, and I don't think that's debatable because his movies make billions and billions and billions. I think in your generation, would you say Miles has overtaken him in terms of
Hmm.
relevance?
Relevance. I I don't know how do you even measure relevance though? But I feel like reach is still definitely Tom, like by like a wide margin, because more people just know, of course, of Spider-Man, Tom Holland immediately registers. Um but maybe in like impact, let's say in a basketball sense, you know, LeBron has the most points, but Michael Jordan has the most points per game. So in a per game basis, Miles is better or more impactful in such a way. I mean, I can't help it, being part of two of the best animated and just remove the animated movies of all time for me in my personal taste. You're bound to be impactful, changing the game quite literally, in terms of animating movies in general and making all the other studios copy what you do, or at least try to be, you know, try to have a strand that look at that style. uh and just resonating, I guess, with a bunch of people from my generation and younger. um that's uh that's a big thing. That's a big thing.
That is a great plug for the fact that Miles Morales wears Jordans in this movie. Good one.
Definitely, I definitely thought that out.
If you people are just joining us, we are talking Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse because we have seen it. We saw it last night. I actually saw the premiere 2 nights ago. And this is a break from the Comics Cubes break. We will be back in July. We're kicking off with co-creator of Watchmen, Dave Gibbons. But back to Miles Morales. How much of the relatability is the fact that we get to hear the music he listens to? We don't do that with anyone else except for like
Yep.
Peter Quill.
Yep. And you know, and it's part of the experience. Like the movie really integrates the songs, especially the first one. The second one not so much, but the first one
But there
you
were a lot of
really
songs
feel as
still.
if a lot of songs, still a lot of good ones, but the first one really does, you know, hammer in that sense of you're with him listening to this piece of music, and it's affecting the story, or it has ramifications in the story, which is great.
When did you know that this movie was going to be special? Wait, when did you know that this movie was going to live up to expectations? And then
When
when
did
did
I
you
know?
know that this movie was going to be special?
Okay. So beforehand, I was like, there's no way they can. I was like, I was rooting for not having more Spider-Verse movies because I thought the first one was so great. Like, there's this thing in The Good Place where I forgot his name, the demon. Oh, that's a spoiler for The Good Place. Where the guy there says, we ruin something we love a little bit just to have more of it. But you know, when it was announced, I was like, okay, fine, we're getting it. There's no choice. Hoping it would be good. And
I was
then
with you then.
I
I said there was no way this was going to be as innovative as the first one.
no way.
No way.
Cause like the first one was one first of its kind, one of the like such a great story with heart and feeling, all that.
Were we wrong?
Yes.
So when did you
um
realize we were going to be wrong?
I think it came at like the when the logo started in the first minute. But
Brilliant.
it starts off with such a daring open. Doesn't start off with Miles.
Yes.
It starts off with Gwen in her universe, and it just tells her story, her part of it, and just the style and the way it was cut and the way it moves, how they portray her and her internal struggle and everything. It's a different start. It's a great start, and just by that I knew, okay, they're not gonna be bland, not gonna stick to what they knew was going to work. They're gonna do something different, which is great. And from the first few minutes of the movie, I immediately said, this is going to be great.
That was it for me too. In 2015, they debuted Spider-Gwen, and I bought her that comic where she debuted on a complete whim. I was like, oh, that looks cool. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
then I thought it was really cool. And then, now that comic is going for like 15,000 pesos, 20,000 pesos, except for my copy because I spilled chocolate all over it because I read it so much. So, read your comics, people. I am like Gwen where she removes that toy from the box. Anyway, so
But try not to spill chocolate.
so um the stylistic choices made in Spider-Gwen's world actually match the stylistic choices made in Spider-Gwen's comic, including the color palette, the way things are drawn, the way colors don't actually stay within the lines, which I thought was brilliant because now I was thinking I could do a whole movie just set in Gwen's world because now I'm captivated by Gwen's world and now I want to see more of it. And then we moved to Miles's world and we were back on familiar territory. And it's just everywhere we went. Like the moment we see, I'm gonna butcher his name, Paviter Probkar, and he's drawn in a different style, and Spider Punk is drawn in a different style, and so on and so forth. I really felt like all of these characters could have had their own movie, and
And they
maybe
should, I think.
or
No,
like
I'm just
or
kidding.
like they were having their own movies and then they all converged in this wonderful movie called the Spider-Verse. It's an amazing, and so that was it for me because that first act with Gwen where she meets Miguel and Jess is its own thing, and then we opened again,
Uh-huh.
like we have labels again, we have the logos again, and then we go to Miles. What did you think of the story that they had Gwen go through with her dad, contrasting to Miles and what he was going through with his parents?
I think it's I mean I'm going to sound like a freaking broken record, but I feel like uh totally unbiased opinion here.
As a
Mm,
totally unbiased person with no skin in the game.
totally. No skin in the game. I I think they did great with like the narrative choices that they made, like, from start to end. and I don't really have a lot of complaint. I don't really have complaints. Maybe me as Dylan the critic would have complaints, but Tristan Tano the fan has zero for the record.
Is
But
that what we're
yeah,
going with? Dylan is your critic name?
Dylan's the critic. Dylan the demon. I don't know.
Okay.
Uh, but I feel like contrasting that was great since um it's a different environment, even different visually they portrayed it, and just seeing how both of them like handle their problems differently was a great thing to like insert there as well.
We're talking Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. There's a comment box on the side, everyone. You can leave comments and tell us what you think as we're going.
Indeed.
Indeed. Of course, the central problem of the whole movie is a variation of the trolley problem. Miles has to. Well, first, let's move back. What do you think of the whole? What did you think when you saw the Spider-Verse? When you saw like how many spider people there are?
Like the
Because
Spider Society.
the Spider Society. Because I'll tell you, Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. I understand and get more Spider-Man references than I get references of any other character ever. And I watched this in a premiere room with a bunch of other Spider-Man fans, and they understood and got things that I was not gonna come close to getting. So,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, I still enjoyed it because I don't think that it was necessary to get all of the inside jokes. My favorite is the sentient Spider-Mobile, whose secret identity is Peter Parker.
He's the most powerful of them all, I think.
Yes, the buggy.
Here in
So, what did you think of
he's the
the Spider Society?
what did I think of the Spider Society? It's had one amazing cameo that was definitely made for me. Not just kidding.
Well, I
Had
know it was made for
one
you. When I saw that for the first time, so the cameo is spoiler. The cameo is Donald Glover as the Prowler of another dimension, which is an inside joke to the fact that he plays a character named Aaron Davis, who is the Prowler in the MCU. I don't think he will ever be the Prowler. I think by the time we get to Miles in the MCU, he'll be too old probably to play the Prowler.
Yeah. He'll be
Um,
grown up Gambino.
he'll be only slightly childlike Gambino. So there is that cameo. So there are live action cameos here, my friends.
Uh-huh.
So what did you think of the rest of the spiders? But anyway, when I saw it the second time with you, I instantly looked at you because I knew it was coming.
I did not know it was coming. And I mean I was hoping, but I didn't really actively hope. But like it's great. One of my favorite artists, of course, separate from, you know, everything happening in the MCU. And just appreciated that thing, especially his history with how Miles was made
Yes.
and his whole thing about it. But that's great. I think it was yeah, just seeing all the Spider-Man and Spider people was like um kind of overwhelming at first. It's definitely a lot of characters introduced all at once, and you're not sure who matters to the story because every one of them could matter. It's like they're all they're all super powered, people that can do many things. But I thought how they structured it was great. And there's Ben, there's the guy, um,
You
Andy
got
Sandberg.
robbed. You got robbed, buddy.
Um, but I think how they structured it was great because it was very streamlined in such a way na um it still centered around the important pieces like Miguel, Gwen, Miles, Peter
Yeah.
B. and they kind of like everyone else kind of revolved around them, which what should have happened because to maintain like a cohesive story.
There's that very, very core, which is Gwen and Miles, and then Peter B. So as opposed to the last movie where I would say it goes Miles, Peter B. Who's the best Peter? It was Miles, Peter B, and Gwen. Now it's Miles, Gwen, and Peter B. I think so. We'll get to the actual meat of it in a bit, but I think my one nitpick was that Peter B. Parker was very inactive throughout, and I feel like he should have been more active throughout because he's Peter B. Parker. I understand that is important because this is Miles's story and we have to spotlight Miles. But his inactivity was I have rationalized it with Peter B. Parker is a screw up.
Oh, did you not rationalize it as Peter B. Parker having the being so fatigued with fatherhood?
No, so okay, so let's get down to this. The real meat of this whole thing is that so again, we are doing spoilers, everyone. So the meat of this whole thing is that there are these things called quote unquote canon events, which is very, very super meta. And canon events are things that are part of every Spider story. And if you mess with a canon event, then it's going to unravel the world that you are on. So for example, if you mess with the killing of Uncle Ben, that world is going to die. That's supposedly what Miguel O'Hara, who is not Spider-Man 2099, he's just another Spider-Man dressed like Spider-Man 2099. That's supposedly what the problem is. Of course, Miles does not stand for this, and he believes that everyone can be saved. Gwen and Peter B are okay with it, and that's the part where I'm like, where that took me a little bit out of the story. I understand that we have to do this because we have to spotlight Miles, but the reason that it takes me out of the story is because I expect Peter to do things, but also Gwen in the movie says that in every other universe, Gwen Stacy dies, meaning that Gwen Stacy dying is a canon event. So she should not be cool with this.
And I don't think they're cool with it though, necessarily. I mean, we don't know what's going on in their minds since it's not really their perspective that we're seeing mainly. But I think it was heavily seen Gwen wasn't really up for it, even lets Miles go to like deviate from the path and actively, searches Miles out despite being told not to do that. But I
Yes,
think I think in my, at least in my like headspace, they were internally, at least for Gwen, I think she internally believes na that there is something fundamentally wrong with what Miguel's doing.
I agree.
Um
Yes, because
and
she turns
yeah,
on him right away.
right
Mhm.
away. And I think for Peter B's end, I don't know. He just doesn't look the type that would actually exert an effort and actually staging a rebellion in Spider Society. Uh because of just his character in general. But I think there is power dynamics in play in the case of like the Spider Society and what they're doing. Like I think
Mhm.
it's pretty clear that Miguel keeps like a close eye on how the spider people act and work and kicks people out once they,
Yes,
once they like don't follow the plan that he's ensuing. So I think there was that. And there was also the line that Peter B said that this isn't what we talked about, which I think they might have already had a plan in place just in case to save Miles or to save universes, for example. So yeah, and yeah, I don't know, but
and
maybe
and
we'll see more in the third.
I do think that's intentional. You want to somebody like Peter, you want to save for the third, really. You don't want to you don't want to use him now. And also really that's what you call a fanboy nitpick, because I projected my idea of Peter Parker onto Peter B. Parker, but Peter B. Parker is not comic book Peter Parker. So
Mhm.
so I completely am aware that this is a fanboy nitpick for me. It's just something that might be a potential issue for other fanboys such as me.
I do have a question for you though.
Yes.
What did you think about the most crowd popping scenes?
What are the most crowd popping scenes? Oh, the cameos.
The more known ones.
Yeah, oh yeah. There are a couple of more than a couple. So again, I watched it in a room full of Spider-Man fans, right?
Uh-huh.
What do you think the most crowd popping scene was?
The room full of Spider-Man fans.
Yes. Because I'm assuming you're referring to the very small cameos by Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, correct?
In our theater, yes.
Yes.
Those
I-
two were the biggest hits.
In a room full of Spider-Man fans, what do you think had the biggest pop?
Maybe I'm not sure. Uh Spectacular Spider-Man, I don't know.
Yes.
That's it?
Yes. Spectacular Spider-Man makes his way through the crowd to talk to Miles, and
For one line.
says one line, and the entire theater I was in went, "Whoa!"
That's great.
It is great. It is great. I think actually the thing that the cameo I didn't expect was PS4 Spider-Man.
Oh, really?
What the
He's
hell?
just there.
Because
He's
they're
just there.
standing next to Video
Insomniac
Game Man. So
Spider-Man.
Video Game Man that he was right next to is directly from the 1981 cartoon Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Ah.
Mhm.
Was he also in the movie?
I don't. He was not in the movie, but Spider-Man 1967 was.
The one who stretched his back?
Yes, the one who stretched his back. There are a lot of
Indeed.
Spider-Men who weren't here that I think they would be saving for the third one. The most notable of which I would assume is Mr. Tom Holland.
Mm-hmm.
That would be
Let's
the.
say. Yeah.
And I was talking to your sister last night on the drive home, and she said that she wishes Tom Holland was in the third one and did something.
Okay, I doubt he's gonna do something,
Yeah, I know he's going to do something too.
but he might be there. Who knows?
What did you
I
think
feel
of?
like
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I feel like it is such a I mean the whole movie in and of itself, it's like a firework of like spectacles and
Yes.
earned spectacles in such a sense na the best parts like in the movie within it. Not the most crowd popping maybe, but like for me the best parts are the ones that are like built up. For example, the time when Miles, fries the shield and just goes away, like runs away and uh dashes off and like just spoils all the Spider-Man's attempts to capture him. And that whole sequence was amazing.
Yes, yes.
That entire
In
sequence
that
was amazing.
instant, I became a fan of Spider-Punk.
Oh, it's simply in that instant. All instance before
I
he
was
was
So let's talk about this. Yes,
Mhm.
it's heavily implied but not confirmed that Gwen and Spider-Punk are dating, right?
Implied, yes.
It's heavily implied but not confirmed that Gwen and Spider-Punk are dating.
Which is why I hated Spider-Punk.
Yes, because we all ship Gwen and Miles, right? So even
Yes.
before Spider-Punk even shows up, I already didn't like him.
Uh-huh.
And then he showed up
Same.
and I didn't like him, and I didn't like him, and I didn't like him. But then he tells Miles how to escape. What am I supposed to think?
He's a man of code, man. He sticks to his code, I guess.
And then when he gives he gives Gwen the bootleg thing, I'm like, you know what? If she is dating Spider-Punk, I get it.
But she better not be.
But I get it.
Better not be though. Better
Maybe
not be.
Miles is just in the friend zone.
I don't think so.
Well, maybe he
I don't think
is.
I don't think you risk killing the universe for a friend.
I think like the animation in this movie is like so good because like even if we just talk about Spider-Punk and the way he's drawn very differently from everyone else and his colors are always changing and it's never distracting. The other sequence I'm thinking of is when Gwen and Miles are first swinging around New York, right? And then they
Uh-huh.
do this swing where they're swinging on their feet. And then
Mm-hmm.
at the end of it, Gwen is walking upside down a statue or a ceiling on on top of one of the really tall skyscrapers. So this is a very small touch. Now she's going to sit down, but she's going to do it upside down. So she webs herself up and then pulls herself because gravity doesn't work that way. You can't just sit.
Yeah.
Right. So she pulls herself, and it's just so well thought out. The animation is so well thought out. The actions are well thought out. Everything about this movie seemed like they thought everything through. It was pretty amazing.
Even in that sequence you mentioned, the way they drew their faces are different. Like they drew them suspended upside down, even if the frame was like just them sitting normally.
Mhm.
It's still different. And yeah, it's just the level of detail in each frame of the movie, which is a wonder to me because um what, it's 5 years since the last one.
Yes,
5 years since the last one, yes.
5 years since the
And
last one.
I believe they're doing these two movies like how they did Endgame and Infinity War, like back to back or like one big whole thing.
Mhm.
So just hammering in all those little details with the personality still and thinking of new stuff is a feat of its own thing. It's great. It's like they're being reckless about it because there's a lot of risks involving so many different moving parts and involving these so many different details and styles and ways of telling the story. But I'm glad the first movie gave, maybe gave like the studio or the team handling Spider-Verse like the trust from the powers that be, to actually be reckless and take these risks more, just ramping it up and just tell the story they want to tell, which is great.
Who do you think is the villain of the movie?
The villain.
Who would you
I
call
mean
the main villain of the movie?
the villain is Spot, but I think for this movie,
For
like
as
the
if
antagonist,
in a narrative function, who do you think the villain
yeah,
is? Yeah,
Miguel.
Miguel is the villain of the movie, right? Right. So before we get to Miguel, let's talk about the Spot. What did you think of the Spot?
I think the Spot was great. I think the Spot being like this weird, clunky, a bit goofy guy who just who is like an anomaly in and of himself, contrasting with Miles is it's like great. I think it's great. I think whoever plays the Spot does a great voice acting job too.
I think the thing about the Spot that really impressed me, because in the comics he's a joke. He's not a serious threat. I think the thing about the Spot
The
that
villain of the week.
he's a villain of the week. The thing about the Spot that they did with the Spot that really impresses me is in the span of a movie, they turned him from a joke to a very serious threat. And how often does that happen? Usually, if we see like, a joke villain, that villain stays a joke, right? Like Batroc,
Uh,
like Batroc in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, or I don't know, anyone else. So Crossbones. Why are all my examples from Captain America? So
I think when you mentioned that, one example that does kind of like do that, but not really, but kind of like do that, is Syndrome from Incredibles.
ah,
A similar vibe.
it's a little different because that is years in between when we first see him
Yeah,
and when we last see him. This is
time jump.
a day.
It's one day.
In one day, the Spot goes from a joke, the villain of the week, to an incredibly serious multi-dimensional threat. That is amazing.
That's great.
That is amazing execution. And all they did to visually convey that was switch his color scheme, completely reverse it. Amazing. But he's not the antagonist of the movie. The antagonist of the movie is Miguel O'Hara. What do you think of Miguel?
Who is played spectacularly by Oscar Isaac.
Agree.
I think I think they really did him. He's one of the best antagonists, superhero antagonists out there. Now, that is a true anti-hero, not like, Black Adam or something like that. That's a that's a, that's a true anti-hero. I mean he does his motivations logical.
Don't mention bad movies when we're doing this thing.
Hey, it must be put in point of comparison,
This is
just to
this is this is a
levy the
terrible
scales.
comparison. This is one of the greatest movies ever made versus one of the worst.
Hey, Black Adam.
It's terrible.
Black Adam. I have nothing good to say about Black Adam.
Black Adam is the work of 15 years. Anyway, yes, so he is an anti-hero. He believes in
And
what
you
he's
can believe
doing.
him. Like people, like, it's definitely logical, like, to believe him and to stick by him. His motivations, his what he wants to do. Like, he would probably win an election
Hmm.
if you held an election, and for the end of the world or something like that. But yeah, just seeing how he's made, like how he's portrayed in like the physical sense, he's mega imposing.
He's
He even
big. The lines on his
Yeah,
face, he's drawn in a way that has more rendering on his face, more detail. Not as
he
detailed as Ben Riley, but very detailed.
yes, and he even moves like a like a villain, like a
Mhm.
someone you should be scared of, and contrasted to the thin, frail frames of Gwen and Miles.
And
It's
even Peter.
and even Peter. It's a great thing to see. Like you really feel worried for them because this guy looks like he can kill you with like a snap, even if he's not Thanos. Uh, and it's great.
Yeah, so at the end of it, at the very bottom of this whole thing is a classic trolley problem. Do you save one person if it means putting more people in danger? I feel like this is a go-to problem narratively for superhero stuff, even though the only other movie I can name that does it is Infinity War.
And it does it way better than I love Infinity War, but there's a lot of like holes with like what Thanos is proposing. Even if people say, "Oh, it's a very believable
It's
motivation,"
not a whole. Thanos is a liar.
well, let him be the mad liar. But I think the way they presented the moral dilemma here is like, and how people react, like how Miles reacted to it. It's very believable for him. In a way, you root for him, but you also understand that, hey, he might be wrong here, or
Yeah.
he might, you know, Like he's definitely like what I was thinking in my mind. Like he's definitely like gonna fuck this up, but like he's you should like go break the universe. Like, I can't like just break it, man. Just break it, because like you gotta try.
That's an amazing scene when they tell him about that whole dilemma, because the mood of the execution, the mood of the movie completely changes. It goes from very lighthearted to, oh my god, this is now really, really, really dark. And that's what this movie does. Now,
Uh-huh.
speaking of going really, really, really dark, did you see that plot twist coming at the very end?
Are you talking about which one? Prowler?
Miles, no, not that one. I think you saw that one coming.
Oh,
So Miles, so again, spoilers for everyone, but Miles, the spider that bit Miles came from another Earth.
uh-huh.
So when Miles tricks Miguel and enables himself to go home, his home is Earth 1610. The it actually sends him to the other Earth, which is Earth 42. Did you see that coming? That he was going to be sent to Earth 42. So basically, you think for a while that he's home, but he's not home. Earth 42, because the spider that was supposed to bite, presumably Peter Parker on that Earth, uh, went to Earth 1610 instead, does not have a Spider-Man. Did you see that
Yeah.
coming?
Um, I feel like I should have. Like I definitely should have, but I didn't until uh Rio's first reply to Miles about cosplaying. But only then did I realize, oh crap, he's not there.
He's in the wrong universe.
He's in the wrong
I'll tell
universe.
you why, because I saw it twice. You should have seen it coming. I didn't see it coming either. Maybe I blinked.
Definitely
I don't
should.
know. The reason you should have seen it coming is because they explicitly flash on the screen that they are sending him to Earth 42. It's
Yeah.
explicitly on the screen, and we all missed it. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. And then when he gets to Earth 42, the mood and the art style is completely different. It's darker, it's more dystopian. But your brain rationalizes that with, oh, that's just because that's the mood of the movie.
Yeah.
No, that is the actual, like, that's the thing that I love about this movie, is that that's one of the things that I love about this movie, is that the art styles, the art choices that they make, they have a narrative purpose.
Yeah. They really do. And it's just from the get-go, like when when it's revealed, quote unquote, that he's in the different universe, or he's in where the spider came from. It's like it becomes a suspense thing, like from a fantastical, whimsical, whatever. Like it's like the room closes in on, oh crap, what's gonna happen? How's this gonna play out? And even the everything they do afterward is like, okay, um, he's up against himself. Fine,
He's
that's
up against
great.
himself as the Prowler, which is great. That one I think everyone saw coming. Yes.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, is that the same universe where Kingpin's family is still alive?
There are many universes where Kingpin's family is still alive.
Like, but is that the specific one where he was trying to get them from in the first movie?
We'll have to check.
We'll have to check. We'll
We'll
have to
have
see.
we'll have to see. So um we have 5 minutes left. So let's do some quick predictions for Beyond the Spider-Verse. So at the end of Across the Spider-Verse, Miles is in Earth 42, trapped by his own self as the Prowler, and Uncle
Yes.
Aaron Davis, who is not Childish Gambino. You know what?
Mahershala Ali.
One thing I like about that ending, about
Yes.
Miles in that ending. So
Mm.
he's chained up, and instead of him being afraid, he has this smug look on his face, like, I'm going to escape and I'm going to kick your ass. And that's where his part of the movie ends. And then we go to Gwen, and Gwen is assembling a team to save Miles. So these are presumably the people who disagree with Miguel. So we have Peter B. Parker, Spider-Punk, the guys from the first movie, Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, Spider-Ham. Am I missing anyone else? Spider-Man India is there,
Uh-huh.
of course,
I think that's
because
it.
so I think that's it. It's a good team. So I'm excited for that. What do you think happens in the third one? Do you think that Prowler Miles will eventually agree with Spider Miles, or do you think they're just gonna fight and he's gonna get knocked out?
I think there is two very viable possibilities. I think one, either they work together, they figure something out. Of course, they fight. There has to be like a fight scene, but either after that, they work together to beat Spot, which is going to be like a massive thing. It's gonna be like the final thing or whatever. Or Prowler Miles becomes Spot or something like that,
Oh.
which is like, and then Miles is gonna be confronted with himself in a very literal sense, coming to terms with him being like an anomaly. What did you
That's
think of that? Like him being like the basically chosen one.
except
Miles is
it's
the
the
chosen
exact
one.
opposite of a chosen one.
He's an accidental chosen one.
I thought it made sense. So on one level, I thought it made sense. The making sense being that he is the only Miles Morales,
Uh-huh.
right? He's the only Miles Morales who's a Spider-Man. So I thought that made sense, that he was an anomaly. And I figured it was something like that because there was definitely something that they weren't telling him. The part where it doesn't make sense is that there's also only one Gwen Stacy.
Uh-huh.
So why isn't she an anomaly? Right? So like that's the part where it doesn't really make sense to me, but I'm trying not to think too hard about it. What did you
Okay,
think of
yeah.
that?
I think it was great. I think, they tied in the first something from the first movie to make sense here.
Mhm.
And I think Miles being so important, one, is important in a narrative sense because we need to ground this on someone. So it has to be Miles. And two, like I'm just glad it's him because it's someone that's so easy to root for. Like you
Yeah, yeah.
want to root for Miles.
And there's a
So
billion Peters.
there's a billion Peters.
There's also only one Miguel.
Apparently there's two, diba?
We don't know if he was a
Diba?
spider.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know if he was a spider.
Makes
Um,
sense.
I'm going to end this with one last question for you.
Yes.
Do you think do you think that eventually, let's say in 20 years, 30 years, whatever, do you think Miles Morales, by the way, one of the things that I really liked, very small touch, the attention to detail in this movie is amazing. Did you notice that Spider Miles says Miles Morales and Prowler Miles says Miles Morales?
Yes, definitely. The
Because
different
I
accent.
assume it's because he didn't grow up with his dad anymore.
Uh-huh.
So he picked up his mom's accent,
Yeah.
right? Amazing. So do you think
And
in
they just
20
and they just inserted that in like in the first part of the movie. They just inserted like him not being that great in Spanish, like
yes,
as a passing joke.
yes, and it pays off at the end. Okay, do you think in 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, do you think there's ever a chance that Miles Morales overtakes Peter Parker in terms of prominence? And by that, I mean, do you think we'll ever see a day where Marvel or Disney or whatever, or Sony, make more Miles Morales merchandise, make more Miles Morales movies, make more Miles Morales comics, video games, whatever, than Peter Parker merchandise, movies, TV shows, etc.?
Ugh. Maybe in 80 years, 30 years is a bit. I don't know. The foundation groundwork for Peter Parker is way too deep and way too hefty and wide. So I mean, I hope so. I hope they just continue riding this train and like, if they need a voice in the next movie for a Filipino Spider-Man, I'm
You
gonna
heard it
throw my
here
name in the
first,
bucket.
folks. You heard it here first. Tristan Dillon writes as Filipino Spider-Man.
I'm gonna throw my name in the bucket there, but I hope so. I mean, I can't stress this enough. And I know a lot of people are mad very recently about casting choices in Hollywood. Um, some of the comments are more logical than the others to these casting choices.
Look,
But
okay. If they want to say who can and can't play a mermaid,
but man, you just have to watch it, and the product speaks for itself. I mean, I like Little Mermaid. Um, I have some issues with like how they shot it. I mean, but we're not talking about Little Mermaid, but like Spider-Man. If they keep making movies like this or like at this caliber, they have to put Miles at the forefront. Because why
yeah,
not? It's it's near flawless. This thing, this
yes,
this this
it
whole
really
thing they've
is.
crafted, it's near flawless.
It really is stylistically, visually, narratively. It's two perfect movies. Do you
Even in a business standpoint, like you have to acknowledge, you have to put your best product in the front. You do. It's like
you do, yes.
you want people to see what you're good at, what you're best at, and this is honestly the best thing either Marvel or Sony have done. This is amazing.
I agree with you. Do you think Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to stick the landing?
Yeah, at this point, I have no
What does
reason to
what
doubt.
does sticking the landing mean? Does it
Uh,
have to exceed the standard that was set by these first two movies? Or does it just have to meet the standard that was set by these first two movies?
I think, in the words of Mr. Miles Morales, it just has to do its own thing. And just I don't know. I'm not the one writing it, and I'm glad I'm not the one writing it, because the bar is like so high now. Like the first movie, no one expected it to be great, I think, and it just
I
shattered
don't think
everything.
people expected it to be good.
I didn't even know I was walking into a Spider-Man movie. The reason I watched Into the Spider-Verse was one day I was just we were just in the movie house, and I was like, what movie is here? Oh, there's a Spider-Man movie. Great. And I watched it, and I went out of it thinking, did I just go on a whim and just watched the possibly the best movie I have ever seen? The answer is yes. The answer was yes.
And it is no longer the best movie you've ever seen.
It it stands on the same platform. It stands on the same platform. And I'm just mega hyped. It's next year, right?
It's next year. I am very excited to see it. There's, I think, just the way that they do this movie, even if the story ends with Beyond the Spider-Verse, there's so many things they can do with it. If they want to tell the story of freaking Peter Parker, I would watch a movie with Peter Parker.
It's gonna be a
Probably
story
not,
about traffic.
probably not the one I would pick, but still, I do feel like it is a case where almost every single one of these spider sonas could hold their own movie. Do you have any final comments?
I have a final question for
Yeah.
you. Um, as a person who is quite lanky with glasses on, do you relate with Dr. Octopus?
Dr. Octopus is big. What are you talking about?
In Miles's universe?
Oh, yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay, in a completely unrelated note, I really do want to like praise everyone who worked in this movie. The cast, the voice cast, everyone.
The
Um,
directors, yeah, the directors,
the
the
direct
animators.
uh uh Shamik Moore as Miles, even if he's tons older than than what
Then
Miles is in the
Miles.
movie. He he commits to like the 16-year-old bit and makes it very believable. Haley Steinfeld knocks it out of the park.
Jake
Daniel
Johnson.
Kaluuya
Daniel Kaluuya.
as Spider-Punk. I didn't even know he was playing Spider-Punk. I just knew
Daniel Kaluuya
afterwards.
Spider-Punk. I am in.
That's great. Brian Terry Henry as Miles's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness. And Oscar Isaac, of course.
Oscar
Jake Johnson.
Isaac
Yeah.
and Jake Johnson. I do
Ang
think
galing.
there's one way that that Miles can eventually overtake Peter in terms of prominence. I do think, and I don't think it will be permanent. I think it will happen um, when he eventually replaces him in the MCU, because that's bound.
Uh-huh.
That's eventually bound to happen. The problem is Tom Holland looks like he drank from the fountain of youth, so we don't know when that will happen.
Yeah.
But
Um,
there you go.
Probably when Tom's contract runs out. But I mean, Tom's good, so I don't mind as far as now, as far as whatever's gonna happen. But goodness, goodness, I still I have not left the film more, wanting more to watch it another time.
I told you I saw it on Tuesday with a bunch of Spider-Man fans at a premiere. And when you asked me if we could if we were watching it the next day, I immediately said yes, because I could not watch it again. And I plan to go again.
A
Oh,
third time.
it is very dense. There's a lot of things that happen on the screen that I feel like you can take a look at us, because there's words that show up on screen.
Uh-huh.
And some of them go really quickly.
And it's kind of like a message. I feel like this is like a message to all the other studios trying to like do the same thing. Like the first Spider-Verse movie was like the spearhead of the movement. And this is kind of like a reminder that yeah, dudes, we're top of the game here, boys. Yo, keep out it.
I'm going to close this by telling you a story that I heard from some animation people when I went to visit LA in March. What they said to me was, when did Spider-Verse come out? 2018?
18.
Okay. So 2019, the Oscars, when it was nominated for Best Animated Movie, the entire animation industry was rooting for Spider-Verse to win, including the people who worked on the other movies that were nominated. And when
They know.
they know, and then when it did win, everybody celebrated. And I think next year at the Oscars, it's going to be the same thing. Okay,
And I hope so.
let's close this off. I'm gonna ask you again, because we didn't record it earlier. In 10 words or less, what did you think of the movie?
10 words or less. The greatest film I have ever seen. Period. I mean, it's probably not, but like, it's my favorite. One of
My
my co-favorites.
The only thing, because when I saw the premiere, I had to write a review right after it, and the only thing I said was, "This is my review. Go watch it. Go watch it now." Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on the Comics Cube. I look forward to seeing you all in July when we come back. I am kicking off the Comics Cube again with Dave Gibbons, co-creator of Watchmen. That will be the first Monday of July. Will be on every Monday, so that's July 3. You can catch Tristan Dillon at Tristan Dillon Writes on Facebook. What are your other social media handles?
Mainly that. Mainly
Okay.
Tristan Dillon Writes on Facebook.
Okay, we have a Zennial using Facebook, guys, so it's very rare. And you, if you live in the Philippines, you can go on Shopee, Lazada, and go on look for his book Wandering Paradise,
Please do.
which
Thank you for having me.